Literally Heinous. Literally Heinous with Lily Maslia.
Hello and welcome back to Literally Heinous. I have a new song. I don't know if you heard, but in the beginning of this episode, I have a brand new special custom-made song made just for me for Literally Heinous by an amazing comedian and musician in New York, Isaac Washington. So Mackenzie, who was a guest a few weeks ago, introduced me to him because I was saying to her, I was like, I would love to have an intro song. Because that little song that I've been using for every other one of my episodes is royalty free. Found it online, freesongs.com. And I never really put much thought into it, never really cared about it that much. And then when I started podcasting more and listening to other podcasts, I'd be like, it'd be pretty cool to have my own. So yeah, I got it made and it's amazing. And shout out to Isaac because he's incredible and totally delivered exactly what I was looking for. I've also been doing a lot of analytics into my podcast. And I found out that 15% of my listeners are in Vietnam. I don't know if that's accurate, but if you're in Vietnam, I would love to hear from you. I'm trying to go on a trip to Vietnam actually with my cousin. So let me know. That would literally be such an honor. Also, it is my dream to have someone listen from Brazil. I've also been obsessed with Brazil lately. I do anything to go. And I love the meme of please come to Brazil. So I'd love to hear from you if you're not in America. Oh, big episode today. I've been very excited to record this episode. And I've been thinking about it for a long time about what I'm going to say and even if I want to say it. But yes, I quit my job at General Motors, General, where I have been working for the last 4.5 years, almost 5 if you include my internship. So it's so crazy. GM, I have worked there. So I interned in 2019 when I was 21 and then rejoined as a full-time member in the communications team in August of 2021 when I was 22. And now I'm 28. So I have spent pretty much my entire 20s at the General and I loved it. And this whole episode is dedicated to my corporate experience. And I want to preface every single thing that I say with overall, I had an overwhelmingly positive experience at GM and totally recommend it as an employer. I can only speak to my job. So I worked in the communications department, the PR department, which is very different from the rest of the company. So Jack, my fiance, worked as an engineer there. His parents were engineers. So it's I know a little bit about the engineering world, but for the most part, I really only know the corporate comms part. And it was a really great experience. But yeah, I quit my job and it's so scary. And I'm kind of freaking out. I'm totally freaking out, actually. So generally, I am not doing well. I'm really stressed out. I'm not relaxed at all. Actively not making money is scary. I definitely treat this like a 9 to 5. I mean, if anything, I'm up working way earlier than I was at my GM job and I'm working later, working until 7 or 8. I just have this overwhelming fear that I quit a really good job and left a really good company and threw it all away. And then I'm also okay, well, if this podcast, if it doesn't turn into anything, or if I decide that I don't like it or want to do it anymore, then am I unemployable? Because I've been out of the workforce for however long. And I just keep trying to tell myself that I'm learning more now by running this podcast full time and writing a pilot. I'm okay, all of that is worth something, right? It wasn't a rash decision. I wasn't acting on impulse. I'm honestly not even a very impulsive person. I'm actually pretty thoughtful. Every big decision that I make, I usually spend years thinking about it. So it wasn't impulsive. It was definitely the right decision, but I'm still fully freaking out. So I've worked at GM for 4.5 years, but you know what, guys? I'm rounding up to 5. Okay. I'm just saying 5. All right. Sue me. And I have worked in the PR department and I started kind of getting a little antsy at GM, I guess about 2 years ago, right around when I moved to New York. And I was very, very fortunate and so grateful that my managers and my leaders allowed me to go remote. Like the majority of my work was remote at GM. When I was an intern, I worked in person downtown in the headquarters at the Renaissance Center, which I loved. And then when I rejoined GM 2021, 2022 was like pretty much full remote. I was living in Michigan. But it was generally remote unless there was some sort of an event. Then the last like 2023 was when it started to get like, okay, back in person. And that was when I was like, I think I'm going to move to New York. And it wasn't because I hated working in person. I did an episode about moving to New York, like, I don't know, a couple years ago. So you can scroll down and find that. Once I kind of hit my like 3-year mark at GM and I didn't get a promotion and I thought I was going to get one. And it was after the era, like my hardest working era at GM, I guess it was like a 4-month period where it's just like total chaos, just crazy. And I really thought I was going to get a promotion and I didn't get it. And then after that, I was kind of like, what? I was like, then what does it take? And then like that also like coincided with like getting involved in New York. And that was when I was like starting to do comedy and starting producing shows and like meeting other people and seeing like what else is in the city and like being like, oh man, like maybe I shouldn't be at GM anymore. Like maybe this isn't right for me, or like maybe I've spent too much time here. But I got moved to a new team and like I loved my new managers. Then I was like, okay, like I'll stick around for a little. And then I got a really big raise that I didn't even care about that promotion anymore. So I was like, okay, like this is fine. And then like 2 more years went by and I was like, oh, this is like what people are talking about when they say like the golden handcuffs. Because I would kind of go back and forth between like GM is great. Like for the most part, my workload was like very manageable. Like I was paid, I thought like very fairly, and I was able to do comedy and produce shows and like do a podcast on the side and hang out with friends and go to happy hour at 5 p.m. and like take vacation days. Like I was really able to have this like amazing work-life balance and creative life balance. So then I was like, I'm just going to ride this out. Like, who cares? And then when I turned 28 in November, and I've kind of like watched my friends like really start to excel in their careers. And because I started working at GM at 22, I always felt like I was kind of ahead of the game. I felt like working at GM in Detroit, like that's the top place to be. Like in San Francisco, working at like Facebook or Google, I feel like GM is that version of like Michigan in the Midwest, honestly. So I always felt like I was pretty like on top of my game. And then when I started seeing my other friends like get promotions and start moving to these big companies and become leaders and like raises and like get all, and I was like, oh shit, like I guess I don't know. I just had this weird feeling that I was kind of hit the ceiling at GM. There wasn't like another role at GM I was really interested in. I'd been there for 5 years, and before that I was working for Mercedes for a year, and it just didn't really feel like I was it matched New York. And I felt like I had this tether to Detroit, like I was a dog on a leash tied to a pole. And I like, the dog and like Tom and Jerry. And it's like, oh, I could go around and like do a bunch of other stuff. But there was always this thing kind of like keeping me from like really playing in the field. And then that was when I started to kind of like think about my money moves. Like, all right, what is next? And I've told myself from the beginning at GM, I was like, whatever my next job is, like it has to be in entertainment, fashion, art, something that I'm like interested in. And so I would apply to these other jobs. I was like, okay, maybe I should work at a PR agency, like an agency in New York City that's like an entertainment agency, or like a publicist. I really wanted to be a publicist. And then like I'd apply to these other things, but I just felt like I couldn't, like it wasn't going anywhere. I couldn't get past like the internal like application site. I genuinely think because like having GM on my resume and like all this GM stuff, it just like didn't make sense. It's like, why would that stick out to a recruiter at an entertainment or like a fashion agency? It's like, even though I know ball, like I know those things, like I think that I would be great at those, like of course it didn't work out. And then also I wasn't like, if I really applied myself, like I think I could have like gone pedal to the metal with like finding the hiring managers or like tapping into resources that I had, but I just didn't want to. And I just had this overwhelming feeling that like I didn't really want to work for a company. Like I'm a little like corporated out. Like I'm tired of corporate. I'm tired of bureaucracy. And I don't know. So then I really started to think about like, okay, what if I treated my podcast like a full-time job? Or what if I treated myself like my own boss? And that was when it kind of hit me. I'm not going to live in New York forever. I mean, I would love to live in New York forever, but I just don't think realistically I will. So I'm like, I cannot spend the majority of my time in New York, like working remote from my corporate job. I just can't. Like, it's a waste of the city, and it's like a waste of like the resources and the people and the creativity and the energy. I'm like, all right, while I'm living in New York, I should be taking this risk. I should be working on creative stuff. I can't just be working at GM. My parents were always supportive of this, by the way. Like, my mom, the whole time I worked at GM, was like, why are you working there? My dad was like, thought it was cool, but like, they were both just like, yeah, like do what you want. And so I like looked at my finances and like moved stuff around, and I was kind of like, okay, where can I put money? Where can I save money? Like, what can I tap into so that I can support myself while not making any income? I made a lot of money from selling my car moving here. So that was huge. And then I put away like all of my GM bonuses like in this high yield savings account. And guys, by the way, if you don't have a high yield savings account, you need to get one. So pretty much every month I get $80 to $100 of interest that just like adds up. So it is a sleigh. So I've got this like high yield savings account, and I'm like, all right, I'm able to pay myself back for like 6 months to a year. And so like I'm good with that. And Jack, it took him a minute to kind of like just understand what I'm saying, because he's like very Midwestern, like very like work hard all the time, like always have a job, like da da da. It's like I get it and I respect it, but I just told him, I was like, this is what I'm gonna do. I just do not feel in my bones that like there's another job that's like right for me right now, and I just think that I need to do this. And he got it eventually. And I also just told him, I was like, my not making income will not affect you at all. Like, I'm not going to punish Jack by proxy and be like, oh, well, I can't go out, or like, I'm not eating out tonight, or I'm not going on a trip. Like, I'm not going to punish him because I'm not making money. Like, I'm still going to live like my same lifestyle. I'm going to like cut back spending a little bit, obviously, because it's always good to do that. But I'm also just like, I'm not going to punish myself too. Like, I live in New York. Like, I know that a lot of like solopreneuring is, meeting people for lunch, like some like paying for things and like funding it. So I'm going to be doing that. And then Jack got it, and then like my friends got it, and everyone's been very supportive. It was hard for me to apply to jobs while having a job. And I never understood how people were able to move from job to job when it's like how'd you even find that? Like, looking for jobs to me is a full-time job. And I always felt guilty when I was doing it, and I never really liked doing it. And I just felt like I needed to like cut GM off completely and just like completely close that door and be done with it and like sit with myself, and then I could start applying to jobs. So then that was when, so I like decided, I was like, I'm going to be doing my podcast full time. I'd always wondered, so I love my podcast, Literally Heinous. Thank you for watching. So I started it November 2022. I launched it on my 25th birthday. Even when I launched it, it was always intended to just be like a creative hobby. And it was because I went to LA for a work trip actually, and like spent a few days by myself, and was really inspired meeting people, and everyone had like side hustles and side hobbies. And I always had that stuff too, like when I was in college and in high school, and I felt like my first few years in like the professional workforce, like I lost it. I was like, just like going to work, I was like, that's not enough for me. So I birthed Literally Heinous as a creative project. And I always wanted it to be fun, and I never wanted it to be a chore. So I would really only post episodes like if I had time, or if I wanted to, or if it sounded fun. And then work got really busy. So like work was always my priority. I was like, the way that I show up like in my office and like to my managers, that is number one priority, like my corporate reputation and my income. So like I'd kind of shelve Literally Heinous and like come back to it when I wanted to, because I never wanted to stress myself out and resent the thing that I loved. But I did love it. And I was always jealous when other people would start podcasts and it'd be really successful, and their podcast would take off, and then they'd be like, oh, I'm quitting my day job because my podcast can support me now. And I'm like, how are people able to like run a full-time podcast to the point where it becomes more than your day job income? Because I could never do that. I was like, I can't give Literally Heinous the attention that it needs while working at GM. And I'd always wondered, I was like, okay, well, what would happen if I treated this like my full-time job? Like, what if I treated my podcast and like, what if I gave it all the energy that I gave to GM and that I gave to my corporate job? What would happen? So that was kind of like the brains behind this organization. And then also other creative projects. So I've been taking a pilot writing class and I love it. And it is so fucking hard, but I've been working on that too. I'm really just focusing on like growing my podcast and like just going balls to the wall. I'm like, okay, what is everything that I've like wanted to do for this, but haven't had time? Make a song for it. I've always wanted a song for it. YouTube channel. I've always wanted to post to YouTube. Like really like make good clips and social media content. So I've been working on that, like figure out like my technology. I've always struggled with like the tech and the recording of my podcast because like I never get it right. Something would always go wrong. Another thing I really wanted to work on is interviewing people. Like I love to interview people and I've always thought I was pretty good at it, but I've wanted more experience interviewing like people that aren't my friends and people that are like professionals in their space. So I'm like building out a content calendar of guests and trying to push myself to reach out to people that aren't my friends, which is so scary. I mean, I have a plethora of interesting, creative, successful friends and family members that can come on my podcast, but I'm also trying to like reach out to people that I don't know, which is scary. Okay, so I wanted to go back through memory lane and talk about my experience at GM because there's some really funny stuff in there. And it all started with my internship. So when I was in college, this was my junior year of college, I was like really looking for internships and I was like kind of freaking out. The year before, I had a summer internship in DC that I hated. And I was also studying journalism at Ohio State. And then after that internship was when I was like, I'm not going to be a journalist. Like, I'm not a serious person. Like, my perception of journalists, and it still is, by the way, it's like I do think to be a successful journalist, you need to be like kind of on your shit. When I was in college, I was working at the newspaper and it was like 1 a.m. and I was at a bar, obviously drunk as a skunk, and my group me for the newspaper staff starts blowing up. And there was a shooting. Everything's fine, but there were shots fired at a McDonald's on campus. And then like all were like the main people on the staff, like I was also on the staff, but like the good ones, they were like, oh, I'm on my way now. I have my press pass. Like I'm bringing this. And I was like, how is everyone like readily available to just like go to a shooting right now? Like I was at a bar. I was like, I'm not going over there. I was like, I can barely read these messages. And that was when I realized I was like, journalism is not for me. Like I'm never going to be a journalist. I'm not serious enough. Like I'm not good enough, which is fine. And I love journalists and I really respect them. I wish I could be one. But I guess podcasting in a way is kind of journalism. So I do get my favorite part of journalism, which is interviewing people. So I was thinking about PR internships and I hadn't taken a PR class. Like I wasn't in like StratCom, like I was in hard hitting journalism. And Jack and I had kind of just started dating and he was interning at GM every summer and had just accepted a full-time job there. And then I was on Twitter junior year of college and the School of Communications tweeted that a representative is coming to like have an open door like talk for anyone who's interested in communications at General Motors. And I was like, oh my God, so crazy. And I remember ditching like one class, like improv practice, or like I rearranged like my whole day for this. We talked about the internship and he agreed to interview me the next day. So I had like one night to like turn to him like my resume and like prep for my interview. And I remember Jack and I FaceTimed for like 2 hours that night because he was already working at GM there actually. So he was already at GM and he was like training me like boot camp. He was like, okay, like this is what GM's talking about, like zero emissions, zero congestion, like zero whatever, like Mary Barr is the CEO, like you got to ask about this. And I'm like, oh, like trying to remember all this stuff. And then I did my little interview and it went really well. And I remember like at the end, just like forgetting to add in like all the things that I knew about it. And I kept like GM had this philosophy, like 0, 0, 0, it's like zero emissions, zero crashes, zero congestion. And the whole interview, I couldn't find a way to work in that I knew what 0, 0, 0 was. And I remember just like at one of the last questions, I answered like something totally irrelevant and being like, and yeah, 0, 0, 0, as if it was some like colloquialism. I don't know. But then So I think that was like October. And I remember they dragged that out for like a good 4 months, like finding out about the internship. And I really, really wanted it because Jack and I were long distance. And like he was up in Michigan working at GM and I was in Ohio at school. We weren't like that long distance, but I really wanted that internship. Like I had kind of given up on journalism and was scared like no PR company would hire me. They made me do this ridiculous test for another like round of the internship. And one of them was like brain teasers and it would be like there's kind of like weird SAT questions where it's like what shape comes next in the pattern, which I'm so bad at. And then after that was another test that was like character analysis. And I remember it took me 2.5 hours to do this test. The questions were so absurd. It was like rate on a scale, like which one you're most likely to be. And it's like either I will do anything to get my way or lying is okay sometimes if it benefits other people. Like these really ridiculous like moral quandaries and I'm like I don't know what they're looking for. It was basically like every test was basically asking me to pick between doing something dishonest or like fucking people over. And after that, I was like, there's no way I'm getting this internship. Like, I don't know what they wanted out of this. And I'm like, also, why are they putting me through this like CIA like interrogation for a communications internship? Like, I'm like, it's 2 months. Anyways, that I was devastated after that because I was like, there's no way I'm getting it. And then I think there was like 3 more phone calls later, something ridiculous like that. I finally found out that I got it and I was so happy. Like I was crying. Like it really just like made my whole year because just like the pressure of college to find internships was a lot and it was really stressful for me. And looking back, I wish I didn't stress out so much. Like that's what I wish I would tell myself because like honestly, it doesn't really matter. But I had a lot of like pressure around like something that led to a full-time job offer. And I shouldn't have been thinking like that because I was comparing myself to my friends in like finance where it was pretty common to have like if you get a good internship and do a good job, you get a return offer. And then all of senior year, you're like partying because you got a return offer. And I really wanted that, but I'm like, that's not how like communications and PR works. Like that's kind of a finance thing, but whatever, I digress. So my internship was in Detroit. It was summer 2019, the year before COVID, and GM put me up and like they put all the interns up in housing. So we got to like stay for free in this like cool building in downtown Detroit. I lived with 3 other girls who were also interns and like we had a rooftop pool at our building and we would like walk to the office and oh my God, like I loved going shopping for like my office clothes. Like I was just so excited and like so happy. So I was an internal communications intern, which meant it was basically just like employee stories, which was the perfect job for me because it was really similar to like what I was doing at Ohio State writing for the newspaper, just like employee spotlights, company news. And I had such an amazing internship and I truly just like loved my internship. Like I had such a good summer. I adored my manager more than anything in the world. Like I loved the people I worked with. I loved the work that I did. Like I loved hanging out with Jack every night. We'd get lunch. Like I had a good group of friends there. Like we'd go out every weekend. We'd go to concerts and music festivals and go to bars and like baseball games. We would go up north to the lake and it was so fun. It was such a good summer, but I had huge beef with the other intern. I was excited because like my manager before, she was like, oh yeah, we usually have 5 and they're all like such good friends. And like, I was like, yay, like I can't wait to have like new friends. And then when I interned, they almost, I guess they like almost didn't have interns or something that summer in the communications department. But they ended up only having 2. So yeah, I was one of 2, which I was just so proud of myself. But it was me and this other intern, and he was bizarre. So I was a little disappointed that it was just me and one other guy, but I was like, okay, you know what? I can make this work. Like I can be friends with anyone. So I attempted to be friends with him, but he was extremely rude. He was 19, which was crazy because I was 21 and I was like, why is there this child? Like he just finished his freshman year at his college. Like I just finished my junior year. I was about to be senior. I was like, how did this like freshman like get the same internship as me? Like I busted my ass like 3 years of college and like he just got here after like only 1 year, but whatever. I was still like giving him chances. First day I met him, he told me his ACT scores and SAT scores and GPA in high school. And I was like, I literally don't care. Like I'm not a cop. So I was kind of trying to be like cool big sis vibes. And I was like telling him, I was like, yeah, like I think a couple of us are gonna go to the bars. Like this bar's like super easy on fakes. Like don't worry. And I was doing this like in the office too, which was insane of me. I don't know why I did this. Obviously, I made sure no one else could hear, but really unprofessional. But I was just trying to be nice and cool, and he was like, "Yeah, I don't really do that." And it's not even that he was nerdy. He was very condescending and he acted like he was 45. And I was like, why are you talking down to me? Like, I'm 3 years older than you. Like, I don't know. And I was very like, I was already insecure that summer, like having huge imposter syndrome. And he really like triggered me and like made me feel really dumb every time I talked to him. So after like the first day, like when I was trying to be his friend and then he was like being kind of douchey about like that, then I was like, okay, we're not friends. Like I'm not even dealing with this. I'm not opening this can of worms. I'm not doing what kind of like jealousy like thing you're doing. That is just not how I roll. I'm not a competitive person. He didn't even live with the other interns. Like he opted to live in Dearborn, which was this like small town 20 minutes outside Detroit, because he was like, oh, like I like to live alone. I don't do well with roommates. I'm like, what the fuck? You're 19. What do you know? Like you've only had a roommate for 1 year. Anyways, so we had beef. One time he asked me to take notes for him in a meeting, and I never forgot that. And ladies, if a man ever asks you to take notes, don't fucking do it. It's a trap. Would they ask another man? No, they wouldn't. And even when he asked me to take notes for him, I knew that I shouldn't. I was like, because that was like Me Too era, like girl boss, like Hillary Clinton. And I was like, whatever. And then I never sent it to him. Like I said yes in the moment, and then I never sent them to him. I think that's what I did. And then one time I was saying to him, I was like, oh, this one executive is so cool. He has such an interesting job. I'm kind of nervous to ask him to do a one-on-one. He seems really busy. And then this intern is like, oh yeah, like we're actually really close. Yeah, he bought me a beer last week. I was like, okay, whatever. It didn't even like occur to me that he was underage because I had been underage drinking for like 3 years, like every single night. So it wasn't even that bothered me. And then a few weeks later, I was talking to my manager and ranting about this intern and just like how cocky he is. And I like accidentally told her that like, yeah, and he was saying that like this executive bought him a beer, like not even think about the underage part. Like from my point of view, I was just annoyed that he was bragging to me. And she was like, wait, what? Isn't he 19? And I was like, yeah. I was like, what's that got to do with the price of tea in China? Like everyone drinks underage. And she was like, well, like this executive, like he can't be buying him beer. And then it like spiraled and then it became a whole HR thing. And I was like, oh my God, like I was so embarrassed because I was like, I am not a narc, okay? I would never narc and send someone to HR. And then I was also like, oh my God, is this executive about to get in trouble? And like this executive is gonna hate me. I wasn't even like ratting about the underage beer thing. Like I didn't even think it was that big of a deal. But then it turned out that the intern lied to me and it was a group lunch that there were like 8 people there and he bought a beer for himself and everybody paid separately. So he lied. So yeah, that was when I realized that bitches are fucking snakes. So then like towards the end of my internship, like I was like gunning for a full-time offer. Like I really wanted one, but it also wasn't really something that GM Communications did. And they're not just like giving out full-time offers like 9 months ahead of like when they need something done. So I was definitely like, I was like, nah, I'm built different. Like, I'll get a full-time offer. And then, like, the last week of my internship, I was really like, okay, it's not going to happen. I would have known by now. And everyone was just telling me, like, stay in touch. Like, you did such a good job. I was like, okay. And then my last day of my internship, I had a little happy hour planned at a bar nearby, and, like, a bunch of people were coming. So that morning, my director put a last-minute 2-hour meeting on my calendar from, like, 5 to 7 p.m. with like our VP. And I was like, oh my God, like, why is there this 2-hour meeting on my calendar? I was like, my happy hour is at 5. So I talked to my buddy, like my mentor, And I was like, hey, my director just put this 2 hour meeting on my calendar. Like, what do you think this means? Like, there was nothing in the description. She was like, you need to cancel your happy hour. And I was like, oh my God, like, I really don't want to cancel my happy hour. Like, I was really excited to like have a little goodbye celebration with everyone. And then I was like, oh my God, she's going to offer me a full-time job. I was like texting my parents. I was like, oh my God, like there's 2 hour meeting on my calendar. They're offering me a full-time job. I cancel my happy hour. And I'm like, sorry, everyone, like gotta cancel it. Like, thanks for a good summer. And then my manager came back and I was like, oh my God, like I canceled my happy hour because this 2 hour meeting got put on my calendar. My manager's like, that was a prank. I was like, what? And then the director comes over and she's like, Lily, like you actually believed me. Like, why would we have a 2 hour meeting on a Friday with our VP? And I was like, of course I believed you. Why wouldn't I believe you? Like you're like so high up. And then I had to like re-invite everyone to my happy hour and be like, hey, like hope everyone can still make it. And I was devastated because I really thought that I was going to get a full-time offer and I did not get one. Oh my God, this is a funny story. I remember one time I woke up during the internship, for whatever reason, like I woke up really early for something and I had responded to an email at like 7 a.m. or 7:30, like on a group thread about something. And I wasn't like waking up to be a show off. Like for whatever reason, I had just woken up early and like responded to an email. And the intern was on that email thread. He comes by my desk that morning and he's like, wow, you were up early this morning. And I was like, oh yeah, sorry. Like I just, like couldn't fall back asleep. And then the next morning I get an email from him at like 5:30, like 2 hours before when I said that. And I was like, you are not slick, by the way. And it was just this like one-sided, like weird competition. To quote Gabriela Montez, you are very good at a game that I have no interest in playing. Like I don't operate like that, never have, never will, I'm not interested. And so yeah, it did not help when I was already like having imposter syndrome, felt like I was really bad at my internship. And then this guy was like always like bragging to me, threatening me, whatever. And then it all worked out because I don't want to be cocky or anything, but my end of summer presentation slayed. Like it knocked it out of the park. Shout out to my manager. I had like really good like data, track record, pictures, receipts of like everything that I did that summer and like made it into a really solid presentation. And like the work showed for itself. And I really and truly, my first corporate experience, learned such a valuable lesson about like good work, like quiet, steady, good work and being a kind person will take you immensely farther than like being superficial and being cocky and being competitive. And it's like words don't mean shit. Like when he would try to compete with me about certain things or like brag or just like all of these like superficial, I'm like, work at the end of the day will speak for itself. And it is always better to lead with kindness and lead with vulnerability. And I'm just like so glad that I learned that early on. And then I went back to school and I remember being like really sad leaving the internship. And the advice that everyone was giving me was like, stay in touch, stay in touch. One executive told me like out of sight, out of mind. So stay in touch. And I was heartbroken because I loved my internship so much. And like, I thought that like, I romanticized it a lot and I romanticized everyone. And like, for me, I think it was like a 12-week internship and it felt so long and it felt like I studied abroad. And then once I like became an adult and like working at GM and then like I was like leading some intern stuff or helping the interns, I was like, that summer flew the fuck by. Like the older that you get, like the faster time goes. And now I can see like why like people didn't care when I left. Like I even like came back for a lunch to like visit everyone in October. And I'm like, October is like 2 weeks away from August. Like what was I thinking? Like obviously no one gave a fuck. Like I don't know. So I wish I could go back in time and like tell myself to, first of all, chill the fuck out. Like it's seriously not that deep. Like I thought that like I got the best internship in the world and I did in many ways, but like it's not everything, but like the pedestal that I put it on. And like I was just like, I couldn't believe that like they didn't want me back. Like I was heartbroken and I took it so personally and I just shouldn't have because like business is business, okay? And then COVID happened and I was, graduated college and like obviously they weren't hiring anyone during COVID. So that was hard. And I worked for a year at Mercedes in Atlanta, which was fine. But I wanted to get back to GM because also like Jack was there and like I didn't want to be long distance from Jack. Eventually, I did get hired back at GM in August of 2021 on the tech team. And it was great. Like I was in a really technical role and I remember like interviewing for it and just saying like, "Oh, I love technology. I love batteries. I'm obsessed with them." I'm like, "No, I'm not." And so now I'm just like thinking like, why did I try so hard? And that is like my theme of like looking back. It's like, why am I trying so hard? Why was I so stressed out? And it's also like, I wonder if I'll be saying that about myself right now, like 5 years from now, because like with my podcast, I'm like so uptight about it and like just so stressed all the time. I'm like, oh my God, I quit my job for my podcast. Like I'm sharing so much of myself online. Like, what if it doesn't work out? So honestly, maybe I should chill out right now. But that is kind of what I was telling myself. And so for the next, like from August of 2021, like up until I guess like 2024, I was working on like hardcore tech. Liam always gave me like so much responsibility. Like I was talking to journalists or I was writing press releases. Like I was helping lead media events at like 24. And that was really cool. And that is definitely something I'll like always be grateful for. Talking about times that I got in trouble, it's kind of a miracle I didn't get in trouble more. I was always like, I'm a pretty good rule follower. Like generally, I kind of always have been. I usually stay out of trouble, but like, I have my moments for sure. I never got in trouble at GM, which was huge. I was always thinking like, okay, there's got to be one day I do something and get sent to HR, but honestly, nothing happened. I did get in trouble one time, not sent to HR, but I was on like a work trip. We would do these things like showing off a new car and you'd go to like a cool location. So I was in Park City and on the media drive, GM invited like our audio suppliers. So like people that worked at like the audio manufacturing company because like the car had really cool like spatial audio or whatever. And I became friends with those guys because they were really cool and they were really like artsy and creative. And became friends with one of the executives and we were talking about headphones and I was like, "Oh, I love my Beats." And he was like, "Oh, we just developed a new pair of headphones. Like they're going to be even better than Beats. They're so cool. Like I've got like 5 extra pairs. Like, will you try them and like let me know what you like and what you don't like and take them home?" And I was like, "Sure." So he gave me a pair of headphones. And then at dinner, like I was talking to some of the other GM people, we were talking about the audio guys, and I was like, "Oh yeah, like I'm so excited. Like he just gave me a pair of headphones to like go try on and like see if I like them. Like I love my Beats, so I'm excited to try these." Then a week after I get home, my boss calls me and he's like, "Hey, so someone at the media drive said that you accepted a pair of headphones and the GM policy states that any gifts over $50 is considered a company bribe, so you need to mail them back." And I was so embarrassed because I was like, how did I not think of that? Like, in the corporate training, there's a whole thing about like bribes and like you think that it's just like a supplier gives you courtside seats to the Lakers in exchange for like whatever. And I'm like, yeah, I would never do that. But like this was so like natural, like just it wasn't like slimy at all. It was just like a genuine, like this guy was like, "Hey, I've got all these headphones, like try them." And I was like, "Okay." And I was just really embarrassed. And then so I had to go on LinkedIn, find this guy and say like, "Hey, I need to mail you the headphones back," and like message him, "Can you send me your address?" And then he like sent me his address and then I had to go to the post office and mail these headphones back and pay for it too, by the way. And it's like $1 million to mail something. And then I had to retake the training. And so I retook a training on like bribes and everything. But I was also just mad that like someone at the media drive heard me talking about it and like didn't warn me. Like I was not accepting a bribe like in any nefarious ways. It just felt really normal. But I remember being like, how could someone hear me talking about that? And instead of being like, "Wait, Lily, watch out. Like, you don't want that to be seen as a bribe." And also that's in the training too, by the way, like telling people, but then like went to my boss and I don't know. I guess that was like the only main time I got in trouble and I didn't really get in trouble, but it was embarrassing and I never found out who did it. And it doesn't keep me up at night, but I don't know. It definitely like really rubbed me the wrong way. I was always convinced that I would get in trouble for like something I said on my podcast or something that I posted on social media. Like my first year in rejoining GM and even like before I rejoined GM, I was always like very cautious about social media because like I never wanted to post anything that got in trouble. And I was always like comparing myself to like the other like younger communications team members and like the kind of stuff that they would post versus like what I would want to post, which would be like obviously like defund the police, Black Lives Matter, like slutty pictures of myself. And then I would look at like the other girls in GM comms and they're posting pictures of like their coffee and like their dog and everything. And I'd be like, oh, maybe I should be more like that. But I don't know. I just couldn't. And then I was really nervous to post about my podcast. Once I did it, like I posted on Maine, and I never really had a ton of people from work follow me, but I was so scared when I posted my podcast that like people at work would say something or like be messaging me or like telling my boss, but literally no one cared. Like not one single person cared. And I was talking to my coworker bestie at the time, being like, I'm just nervous that people are going to think that like I'm spending all my time working on my podcast instead of working. And she gave me the best advice. She was like, people have full on children, and that's way more of a time suck than having a podcast. And I was like, that is so true. No one at work ever said anything about my podcast. Literally never. Even when I was like leaving GM now and like telling people like, yeah, I have a podcast, people are like, really? I'm like, bitch, you follow me on Instagram. You should know that. But I digress. Like I would rather people at work not listen to it than listen to it. So I had this weird, like, I don't know, like almost philosophy, I guess, that like in a corporate job, and especially a PR job, I was like, you basically need to be an anonymous person. Like you shouldn't be like too out there with like your opinions and like your personal brand. But that is not true at all. And actually it's like kind of the opposite. Like we live in a social media society, and like we live in a world where like social media, it's not just this like fringe thing anymore, like having like a MySpace page or like a Tumblr. Like your social media, if you want it to be, is an extension of yourself, and you are allowed to express yourself on there. And it's been really cool, like sort of like the tail end of leaving GM. Like I've seen other like comms, like PR girls, like also have social media presence and like make really cute videos and like post like public figures. And I was like, oh, that's so cool. I didn't know I was allowed to do that. Like maybe I would have been a little bit more like out there with my podcast, but I was always just really scared of like jeopardizing my professional reputation. Okay, now my tips for surviving corporate. And I am once again going to reiterate that this is my experiences and observations of 5 years in a massive company's communications department. I think some of my advice might come off as like a little bootlicker, but like I was fine to be a bootlicker if I liked my job and like I wanted to keep my job. So if you're in like a toxic job environment, like maybe this isn't for you. But as someone who worked in a corporate communications department for a massive Fortune 25 company, like this was my experience. So there is a set of unspoken tacit rules in corporate environments. And it's really hard to learn. It makes me feel for like neurodivergent people who would struggle with this, because even I would struggle with it, like especially being young, like 22, and not understanding that like when someone says something, like it means something else. So for example, a lot of times with like getting feedback from like when you're working on something, like for me, for example, it would be like a press campaign. So like rolling out an announcement for like a new piece of technology. Like I would work on it, then work on it with my manager. My manager would give me like solid, like more concrete feedback. And then the farther we would take it up the ladder, the more vague the feedback got. And that was always really frustrating to me, because like a VP or a department lead would say like, you know, like what about like scaling up, or like do like moving the needle or threading the, and I'm like, push the envelope. I'm like, I don't really know what that means. And like I would ask, but I felt like they weren't really telling me the direction. But this is the thing, is sometimes you can just like change a little bit of it, and like it doesn't even change the end result really. And that was always what bothered me too, because I was like presenting a media campaign, and in my head, I'm thinking the whole time, I'm like, none of this is even going to happen. So I know we don't have money. So why am I even doing this anyways? But it's like, this is what I'm talking about with like playing the game, is like it's like playing pretend almost. Like I felt like that was a lot of like what I was doing sometimes, was like playing these like imaginary games to like make things like look good. And when I was like reevaluating after feedback, it felt like when you're like feeding a toddler or something, and they're like, oh, I don't want that food, and then you just kind of like move the food around and say that it's different. That was how I felt like giving feedback in a in a corporate environment. And I just felt like in corporate, like that was always how it went. It's like bureaucracy matters there. This is kind of hard for people to understand, I think, sometimes, but it's like department leads will always say, like, oh, I'm your friend, like bureaucracy, job titles, it doesn't mean anything. That's a lie. It does. It does mean stuff, and you have to play by the rules. When you're sending a big email to a lot of people, you have to put in people in order of seniority. So, like, in the to section, when you're just like writing who the email goes to, like, you low-key need to put like VP, department lead in order. And it's so small, but, and I did have a manager tell me that one time, and even he was like, this is so stupid. And I know it's dumb, but it like kind of matters. And it like does almost like, because it kind of reflects on you and it's just like a sign of respect. And I know it's stupid, but like you get used to it. But that is just like one thing where I'm like, bureaucracy. Another thing is like, if you are a less senior person and you are like having a conversation with a more senior person and they say like, they offer their time with you, you absolutely have to follow up on that. And then like you have to be the one to schedule time with them. And like if you're talking to someone and they're like, oh, we should talk, like then you go back as a less senior person and you either send them an invitation or you ask their admin for time, because you cannot expect someone senior to make an appointment with you. That will never happen. Another thing that intern got, like people were kind of talking about, was that he was telling people in the department to find time on his calendar. And I remember hearing someone being like, yeah, it's so rude. I can't believe he told me to find time on his calendar. And it sounds really small, but it's a little bit of a power thing, especially an intern doing that to like a real employee saying like, oh, find time on my calendar. Because find time on my calendar, that phrase is something that like seniors use, something that like an executive will use for like someone else to say like, like let's meet, find time on my calendar, because it implies that like I'm the busy one, you find time on mine. Small, but it works. Another thing with like playing the game is like knowing how to get promoted is big. And I was never good at that. But like you have to be advocating for yourself. You have to like be constantly building a case for yourself to get promoted. And I was really bad at this. But like people would always give me this advice and I should have taken it, but I never did. But like you need to have like a folder on your computer of like screenshots and receipts or like anything that proves like work that you've done over time to get promoted. Like this is kind of weird advice, but even if you get like a nice email from someone, like a higher up email from someone, and they say like, oh, great job on this thing. Like if you get any form of like compliment, like honestly save that and like use it in your arsenal, because then you have like written feedback from a superior saying like, see, like I did this thing for this person and they said these nice things about me. And it sounds weird and cocky, but like you have to like really advocate for yourself, and you have to have receipts that show things that you did and like impact that you've made at the company, because it's not enough to just like hope that doing a good job will give you a promotion. I was never really privy to how the whole like promotion things worked, but in my understanding, like the whole department, they'd say like, okay, 6 people can get promoted, and each like team leader or like function obviously wants one of their team members to get promoted because it looks good on them. You need to advocate for yourself because they have to advocate for you to get promoted, because these leaders are going up and they're fighting for you. You need to be giving them that stuff so that they can go to bat for you, because it's not enough for them to just like pipe up in a meeting and say like, oh, I really want to promote this person on my team, like because she's like really done a good job. But then if they have like a whole folder of stuff, then that works. And also, that's like what I think happens. Like, I'm pretty sure that's how it works. I really never cared much about the HR thing. Like, once I didn't get promoted, I stopped caring. Okay, so tips for leaving your job. So I am very proud of myself for the way that I handled leaving my job. It was really scary. Like, I was terrified to leave. And the thing is, like, I had a pretty easy leaving experience. Like, I wasn't in the middle of any projects. Like, I really and truly was not working on anything. There was one thing where I was like, okay, people are going to be pissed at me, but whatever. Usually, like, when you leave a job, there's like a laundry list of like projects and assignments, and like there's no good time to leave a job. So it's like, and you can leave a job whenever also. Like, But luckily, I was in a situation where like I wasn't really working on anything. So like it was fine. You have to follow the right protocol if you're leaving your job. So you need to tell your direct manager first, and then you let them decide like however they want to disseminate that information. And then she told me like, okay, you can tell the director, you can tell this person. And then like the further I got up the ladder telling people I was leaving, I was like, okay, you decide, you tell me, like I will not say anything. So I let like our like department lead tell everyone, because I had seen other people in the past like kind of get in trouble for like sharing their own news. And it feels kind of backwards because you should be able to share your own news about leaving with your friends, but it's better for your friends at work to find out through like a department message or whatever than for you to get in trouble for like going over people's heads. I waited until like the absolute last minute until, because like my department head wanted to share it on like the all department heads meetings. And then I started getting messages from people, and people were like, oh my God, I can't believe you didn't tell me you were leaving. And I'm like, girl, like I wanted to, but like I'm not scooping anyone. And then in the resignation letter, definitely be nice in it. Like if you're asking to get paid out of your PTO, say like I would like to get paid out, not like I expect to get paid out, because like everything from like the moment you tell someone you're quitting your job, that's what you're remembered for, is like how you leave. And I was leaving on a very positive note, like after 4.5 years with the company. And also leaving without having another job lined up really helps. Like I did not get any sort of like pushback or any like, because it's, you can't argue with that. And like when I told people I was leaving, like I gave this like the truth. I told her, I was like, I don't want to work at another company, like full stop. And that is the God's honest truth. And I told people about my podcast. I was like, I want to treat my podcast like a full-time job. Like I want to work on my pilot. Like I want to do all of these things. And like now is a really good time in my life. Like I don't have any responsibilities. Like I don't want to work at a company anymore. Like I just want to do this. So everyone was cool about it, because it's like you can't be mad at that. Okay. And then having issues with people. Gossip in corporate, it's not a bad thing. So what you might think is gossiping, it's also like not necessarily gossip. Like, okay, maybe sometimes it is if you're like whispering to your coworker bestie about like someone's divorce, like that's gossip. But if you are having an issue with someone and you go to your manager, or the person that you're having issues with, if you go to their manager, like that's not gossip. That's like legitimate, like expressing a concern. And I did not know that you could just like go to someone's manager and like air a grievance with someone on their team. I never did that. I personally think that's insane, and I would never do that. But it is something that happens. Like I remember like people telling me like, oh yeah, like I was having issues with this person because he was really cocky. So like I told his manager. I'm like, you told on him? Like that's like narc behavior. I would never do that. But like low key, you can do that. And like it's also encouraged. Like you would be shocked at some of the things that people complain about, because sometimes like people are annoying and I'm like, that's just life, honey. Like you can't just complain about everything. Sometimes you just gotta like roll your eyes and walk away. Also, if you are having issues with someone, like building a little case against them. And this is what I will always tell my friends, like if they're having issues with someone at work, because these small things add up. So like with this intern, like, okay, yes, I had issues with him. And yes, it was a 2-month internship. So like, whatever, it's fine. I never saw him again. But if we were like genuinely working together, I would have written these things down, because even though like a lot of them seem small, but it's a hostile work environment. It's like with a friend, you know, like if a friend does something that annoys you, you're always weighing like, is it worth it to say something? Like, I don't want to be nitpicky. And it's like, you don't always have to say something, but at least like have it written down with like what they said, when they said it, and like what the context was. Because sometimes, this never happened to me, but sometimes like it can be a bigger issue and other people are having it, and maybe someone else like starts a file against this person, then HR reaches out to you and asks about your experience with them, and you're like, okay, well now I have like an arsenal of things. And I'll also like, I will recommend that to anyone that's having issues with anyone in their life, even if it's like a family member, because the worst is like when, if you do get confronted either like by them or like by someone else, and you're like, they annoyed me, but I don't remember why. Like that's the worst. Sometimes you don't even have to do anything with it, but it's just like, it's good to have. And also like HR, you can go to them for like really stupid shit. I never did, but I feel like I'm a pretty like chill person. Like if I get mad or annoyed at someone, like I can kind of just like swallow it. But like people really do go to HR for the dumbest stuff. And it's like, you can do that if you want. Like no one's going to think you're a pussy. Like if anything, HR will accept it. Another thing about being bitchy in the workplace, it never gets you anywhere. So every single time, and it's not often, but in my professional career, every time I sent a really bitchy email, I always regretted it. I got like post nut clarity, and like it would feel good in the moment. Because if someone sends you something that's just like ridiculous, or if someone's being mean to you and you just like want to like annihilate them, or like if you want to even just say something snarky back, I like the few times that I did it, I never felt good afterwards. Like I immediately felt guilty. Like it just stoked the fire even more because they sent me like an even meaner email back, or God forbid they copy your manager. Oh my God, I've been there before. And it's just not even worth it. Like you don't have to be like bubbly McGee, but like just chill for a sec and then just walk away and just say something like even toned, because it's just not worth it sending the bitchy email. And the other unfortunate thing about corporate is that you do have to be nice, like pretty much all the time. And again, you don't have to be bubbly McGee. In the long run, like being nice and easy to work with is better for your longevity at a company than like how good you are at your job. And it can be hard to be nice. Like trust me, I get it. Like I have wanted to send bitchy emails, like I've wanted to like roll my eyes at people, but at the end of the day, like when it's judgment day and you're getting like your year-end review, it's so much better in the long run to be nice than to be mean. And also like especially to reporters, like I was one time kind of bitchy to a reporter because he yelled at me for not sending him a link to a press conference, even though I did send it. And I was bitchy back, and then I got in really big trouble from my boss for being mean. And that was the last time I did that because I learned my lesson. But it's just like it's so hard. And also I feel like in life, like we're told like you don't owe anyone anything and no is a complete sentence. But I'm like, okay, sometimes you do. Like sometimes you just you have to be nice, and it's really hard. And like trust me, no one hates it more than me, but like at the end of the day, you are the one who stands to benefit from like being nice to other people. And if someone's like being mean to you, chances are they're taking their job way too seriously and they're a loser. So like you're winning anyways. And lastly, my biggest tip for having a job is you always need to have a work mom, a work bestie, and a work crush. So work mom is really important. And this is someone who you can confide in, someone who you can get advice from, and just someone who like really cares about your well-being. And it's just, that one's really important. But that one's also like, that one will break your heart the most, because if you think that someone's your work mom and they're kind of like blowing you off sometime, like it hurts so bad. Work bestie, I would argue, is the most important. You need to have a work bestie, just someone that you can like shoot the shit with, bounce ideas off of, ask them how much they're getting paid. That's really important. But you also have to be really careful, because I've been burned by this too. Like not everyone could be your work bestie, and you need to like open your heart to them, but be apprehensive for sure. You can't trust them. Work nemesis is huge. A work nemesis, I mean, they're pretty easy to find, honestly. When I was working at Mercedes, my whole time there, I had one huge work nemesis, and we like pretty much worked together the whole time. And like, he was genuinely public enemy number one. But at GM, like over my 4.5 years there, I would have like periods of different nemesis. Like obviously the intern was a huge work nemesis, and he was really my first ever work nemesis. And like for that, I'm grateful, because he opened me up to so much hate that I didn't know that was in my heart, and that really fueled my desire to do a good job at work. But the rest of my time at GM, like I've had like nemesis like come in and out, but like nothing serious. And then lastly, work crush. Work crush is so fun. Like it can really be anyone. It doesn't have to be like a heterosexual or like an actual crush, but it's kind of fun to just have someone that you're like, oh, like I hope they're in the office. Like they're so much fun. I honestly have never really had a work crush, actually, now that I come to think of it. I think maybe when I was younger and like my high school jobs I did, definitely never at GM had a work crush. Like I would have people in the office that I'd be like, oh, I hope they're in today because I know I'm going to be LOLing. But for my friends, especially friends that work in restaurants, like having work crushes is huge. It's the reason you get out of bed in the morning. Okay, so that is my corporate story. And that's pretty much everything that I feel comfortable sharing. Overall, overwhelmingly positive experience at GM. Like I loved having worked there. I got so much good experience, and I'm really grateful to them for like letting me move to New York. I never got in trouble for my podcast or for my comedy. Like I was always like encouraged to like explore my creativity. And if anyone wants to work there, I definitely recommend working at GM. So now I am doing this full time, which is definitely scary. I've been really busy. Like, there's no shortage of work for me to do on the podcast. I've been really busy and it's been really fun. I've got lots of goals for myself. So please rate my podcast if you haven't already, 5 stars, please, on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. And Apple Podcasts, if you leave a review, that would be wonderful. No worries if not, though. I also have a Substack. Please subscribe to that. I'll have written articles that correspond with each episode. And yeah, please enjoy my new outro music. Thanks for listening.